Hi, this is Mr. K's, and this is 31.1b. 31.1b. We're continuing our discussion of the Cold War, and you see on the map here the division between Western Europe being free and Eastern Europe being communist. Stalin wanted to keep Eastern Europe and use those countries as satellites or buffer zones if he was ever attacked by the West. To see how much he wanted to keep that land, we see the Berlin Airlift in 1948. Stalin closes off all roads to Western Berlin, which was the only free area in Berlin. The Allies begin to send airlifted supplies to West Berlin. Allies supply blockaded West Berlin with airlift for 11 months. Blockaded West Berlin with airlift for 11 months. They brought in food, they brought in fuel, they brought in clothes, they brought in what was needed. And Stalin began to see that the West was not going to give up. So Stalin ends the blockade. Stalin ends the blockade. What's important about this? It shows the communists that the West was not going to give any more land up without a fight. Now, Stalin could have shot those planes down, but in doing so, he risked World War III, so he didn't do it. The Cold War. What is that? No, guys, it's not cold in the sense of freezing. It's a war of words. Short military action, spying by the USSR and USA. It's a war of words, short military action, spying by the USSR and the US. This is an era of tension, an era of tension. Now I want to show you two military alliances that occur in the late 1940s and early 50s. One is a gathering of free nations to gather together in case the communists ever attack. It was NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. In 1949, 10-member organization existed to repel communist aggression in Western Europe. To repel communist aggression in Western Europe. It gave the West safety if the Soviets and their buddies ever attacked. Well, 6 years later, the Soviets and their buddies formed a communist version of NATO called the Warsaw Pact. It was a meeting held in the capital city of Poland, Warsaw, and 8 members pledged to repel. They pledged to repel Western European aggression. Western European aggression. Why would the West ever want to attack the Russians? Well, Napoleon did it and Hitler did it, and the Russians were wary that maybe it was going to happen again. So these two alliances squared off at times, not in a big confrontation, but in a war of posturing. 1961, Berlin, again, is the center of a crisis. The communists start building a brick wall that extended all the way through the city of Berlin and then out into the outreaches of the countryside. It turned into barbed wire and minefields and guard dogs and guards. It made it more difficult from people fleeing communism to the West from being able to get through. So it was built in 1961 to divide free and communist worlds. To divide free and communist worlds. The US and the USSR test nuclear weapons. Test nuclear weapons. And there's a threat of world destruction. A threat of world destruction. Both nations seem to be willing to go to any extent. This is called brinkmanship. And it was not good. It was a willingness to go to the edge of war. The edge or brink of war. Willingness to go to the edge or brink of war. And this policy demanded huge stockpiles of nuclear weapons. It demanded huge stockpiles of nuclear weapons. And these weapons included ICBMs. This is intercontinental ballistic missiles. These are nuclear warheads on missiles that could be launched from 600-800 miles away easily. Later versions can go thousands of miles. We could actually hit the Soviet Union from the United States now. Back then, we could only go 600 to 800 miles. Now, Sputnik was a concern in 1957 to the west. It's an unmanned satellite from the USSR, that circles the Earth. It scared us because we were scared the Soviets had an edge on scientific endeavor as far as rocketry and space research. So we poured millions of dollars into getting a man into outer space and then onto the moon. Our last incident we're going to talk about is the U-2 incident. The U-2 spy planes were high-flying planes that were flying over the Soviet Union. It's a U.S. spy plane that was shot down over the USSR in 1960. Shot down over the USSR. The pilot, Francis Gary Powers, was captured. Francis Gary Powers was captured, given 10 years in the Soviet Union, but let go after 19 months. It showed that both sides were spying, and it was a black eye for the West that they were caught. They thought they were able to fly so high that nobody could shoot him down. Well, a Soviet rocket did shoot him down, and he suffered the indignity of a high-profile trial. Well, this is Mr. K's with 33.1b. We're done. Bye-bye.